There are some new Nissan Frontier and Pathfinder deals that I wanted to share with you guys if you haven't seen them yet. Also, some other mid-size trucks that are running deals right now. Chevy's not running quite as good a deal as Nissan, but I think they're worth talking about. Now, people can say what they want about Nissan. I've always had good luck with their powertrains. And I think aside from the CVT transmission that they put out for quite a few years, they actually build really reliable powertrains. And it's interesting, on Nissan's website, they have the best value midsize. I do think they probably are the best value midsize because they're not going to knock your socks off like the Chevy ZR2 or any of these things out of the gate. They're just not as exciting or as cool looking as something like a ZR2. And the latest offers from Nissan are getting pretty decent, $3,500 cash back. They are offering 1.9% for 60 months. Actually, some better deals on the Pathfinder I'll tell you about here in a sec. And looking broadly across the nation, you can pick up, these are like let's say it's a work truck, just the extended cab, little longer bed, not the quad cab. We'll get to those in a second. $29,447 for a Frontier SV 2025. That's pretty darn cheap in 2025. I think that's cheap compared to all the other brands. We'll go check those out as well at the end. 2025 for a Frontier S. I would actually just jump to the SV model at this point. You get a little nicer wheels, more interior, packaging, just a little better truck for only $1,000 more. And what's crazy, even if you jump up to the crew cab, we're talking $29,877 for an S. That's the base, essentially the base model. And these are four-wheel drive. So, I see in the comments all the time, people always saying, I just want a basic truck. And they claim that this is what they want, is a basic truck. They don't want a turbo. They exist. I just think they're not as exciting to people. So people could buy these and they're not a bad value. Now, if you jump up to the SV trim in the crew cab, you're looking at $33,000 is probably the cheapest I can find across the country, at least on cars.com. I like that site because it aggregates a lot of different dealers and they sort of compete on price. And if you compare that to the used market for the Frontiers, gosh, they're, 25.6 is probably the cheapest one I can find here for the SV. So you're talking maybe a $5,000 reduction with 50,000 miles, 38,000 miles on them. So with the financing being like 1.9% on a new one, you might actually make out better, have a better warranty, a little more peace of mind, and the payment might not be too much more on a brand new one versus some of these lower priced used ones. Now, comparing the Frontier to something like the Tacoma, a lot of people cross shop the Japanese to the Japanese. They're going to, even though they're made in America, they're looking at Nissan versus Toyota. Sometimes they factor in, the Chevy and the GMs, but a lot of people just trust the traditional Japanese manufacturers a little bit more for reliability. So the Tacoma's, 4.75% for 60 months. So they're definitely off a little bit as far as financing rates are concerned. But their prices actually on the Tacoma, they have a ton of stock. So they're coming down. And Toyotas are going to be, they're like, I'd say like 2,000 to 3,000 more than a Frontier, and they're turbocharged. New platform, people aren't going to trust them quite as much yet, but as time rolls on, man, they are selling a ton of Tacomas. So they seem to be past the transmission issues they had in 2024. They haven't had a lot of those in 2025. So the Tacoma it's still considered a reliable truck. They haven't been having any engine problems, not like the Tundras. So they seem like a fairly safe bet, at least so far, but they've only been out a year. So, 5-6 years down the road, maybe we'll have a little bit better idea of the reliability on the new Tacoma. But price-wise, Tacomas always seem to be just, $2,000 or $3,000 more than a Frontier. Even though, even back to the old 4-liter Frontier, those things were super reliable. Now, comparing the Tacoma, the Frontier, to, say, something like the Chevy Colorado, I will say the Chevy Colorado engine, 430 foot-pounds of torque, and it has been extremely reliable for a turbo. It's been out longer than most of the other turbos, so people aren't having problems with GM's Turbo Max engine. They just aren't, and the thing is built like a tank. The transmission is where people end up having issues with GM. The 8-speed next gen has a valve body upgrade kit for that. So that's usually where people struggle with Chevy and some of the electronic issues, but their engine has been really solid in the Colorado. Unfortunately, I don't think GM has nearly as good of financing rates right now. 2024 Colorados, not even the 25s, are 1.9% for 36 months. So not the best deals really. Now, even though Chevy doesn't have great financing rates, you can actually find some pretty good deals on them. Coming in around $34,000 is probably the lowest you're going to find for a Trail Boss or an LT across the country. That's in Florida and Texas right there, two pretty highly rated dealers. So I'm always, by the way, if you're looking on cars.com or something and you see dealerships rated like 3 or 2, most likely they're doing a bait and switch with the pricing, so you just have to be careful with that. And another midsize, the Ranger XLTs, that's kind of similar to that SV trim level on the Frontier, similar to the Tacomas in the SR5, I think, and they're around $33,999. These are 4-wheel drive crew cabs. So they're all coming in really similar. It's going to be one of those situations where you got to go decide what brand you like, decide if you think their engines and transmissions are reliable, and then go drive one and decide, the look, the feel, everything, see which one you like. They're really close in price. Ford themselves isn't really offering a great deal on the Ranger right now. 2025 XLTs, $369 a month, but you got to put down $4,500. That doesn't seem like a great deal to me. And part of that is due to the fact that there's only like 4,800 Rangers for sale across the country. So I haven't looked at the total sales numbers. I don't know if they're just producing fewer or if they're selling so many, but a lot of it has to do with that where, Tacomas, I think there's 20,000 available right now across the country. So the Tacomas are selling a lot, but they also have a lot available. So you're going to see a price variation in all the brands depending on the availability across the country. Supply and demand 101. And the 2025 Honda Ridgeline Sport, $34,995. Again, this is naturally aspirated as well. That's why a lot of people choose it, and they like Honda. They like the way it rides. It actually is, it's pretty capable for a unibody. It's not, your traditional body on frame. It's not going to be maybe towing as much or seem quite as capable in that way, but a lot of people do love the Ridgeline, and it's been a very reliable platform. Honda does have a decent amount of these available and a little bit better financing than, say, Chevy or maybe Toyota. 0.99% APR for 24 to 60 months or 1.99% for 61 to 72 months. So a little bit better deals. Those expire on September 2nd, I believe. And Nissan actually is extending even more deals. The Pathfinder, I was surprised to see 0% for 60 months on a new Pathfinder, the new 2025 Rogue and the 2025 Murano. So some decent deals on naturally aspirated cars other than the Rogue. If the Rogue has that VC turbo, I would probably stay away from that just till they work out the kinks because they've had some recalls here recently. So you're going to see better deals on Rogues because they're doing the 0% for 60 months and $1,750 cash back, like bonus cash. And the Pathfinder, the dealers should have a little more wiggle room as well because they've got 0% for 60 months plus $1,000 bonus cash. I think the Pathfinder's traditionally been selling pretty well, that and like the Kia Tellurides, because they're naturally aspirated and folks still, they just don't trust the turbo engines yet, or at least out of warranty. The Pathfinders are a little bit more than the Frontier starting out. The Pathfinder S is $32,374, $33,000 for the 4-wheel drive, and the SV is the most common trim, $36,000. So it's actually, I don't think it's a terrible deal considering the competition and the prices of everything else. If you go drive one, they actually drive pretty nice. They have a decent amount of space inside, and I like the styling of the vehicle. They're pretty good looking vehicle. The Rogues are a little different. They're coming in around the 25,000 range. Super popular vehicle. I mean, they're just like the RAV4 or the CRV, but as you can see here, I will warn you, they have this VC turbo variable compression turbo 1.5 liter 3-cylinder engine. It actually runs great. People love the way it drives, but I would not trust this engine out of warranty. So if you're going to buy one of these or lease them, I would just consider doing it for $60,000 or buying an extended warranty and getting rid of it. You do not want to be replacing engines in these things if they continue to have the bearing issues that they've had. So let me know what you think in the comments. Are you going to stay away from the turbocharged monsters like this Chevy ZR2 or the Trail Boss? They have an awesome 2.7 liter 4-cylinder turbo engine. Thing puts out a ton of torque. It drives nice, but would you trust it outside of warranty? So is it the Frontier and the Ridgeline that you're going to trust outside of warranty, and the Tacoma and the ZR2 maybe keep trucks in warranty and then just cycle them every couple years? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Honestly, most of these midsize trucks have been very reliable so far. I've looked at NHTSA complaints, I've looked at forums, and none of them have a lot of engine failures or problems right now. Chevy has some transmission issues, but that's really kind of the bulk of it. Tacoma's had transmission issues early on in 24, but they don't seem to in 2025. So yeah, I think it's going to come down to, what do you like the looks of, the price, everything else. Let me know what you think. As always, till next time, thanks for watching.